Hey Brennan, how's it going?
How are you, Mike?
Pretty good. And today we have an interesting topic. It's about duplicate content and how this can really hurt your website. So first of all, can you explain to our listeners what is duplicate content?
Yeah, today, Mike, duplicate content can take a lot of different forms, but in essence, it's anything that is not written originally for your website. So, duplicate content could be something that you plagiarize from somewhere else. It might be as little as one or two sentences or a paragraph. It could be as much as the entire page. It could be in today's day and age something that's written by a spinner or a robot or AI. Chat GPT is huge these days. So if that wrote the content, it's technically non-unique to your website, and that's considered duplicate. So really anything that either you or a writer or a person that works for you or you hired didn't natively write for your website is really considered duplicate.
And then, okay, so if I'm kind of a novice here and I put up content on my page, maybe I purchased it from my copywriter. How can I check and find out whether it's duplicate or not? And kind of what are the thresholds?
Yeah, there's two really easy ways to check. There's tons of free tools that are on the web. One of them is called Copyscape. You can put your URL in, and it'll actually search around and it'll look for pages that have the same content. It'll tell you, if there's duplicate there and what percentage it is and all that stuff. The second way that you can do it is you can actually just copy and paste, a sentence or two of what you think might be duplicate, put it within quotation marks, and put it right into Google. And if there's a page within their index that matches that exactly, it'll come up and it'll show you what that web page is. The other thing you asked, Mike, is in terms of tolerances, how much is too much when it comes to duplicate. I'm a big fan of, obviously, the less duplicate you have, the better. So the closer you can get to 0%, the better. There's always going to be circumstances where there are some things that are duplicate. So maybe you wrote an article and you're actually quoting someone, right? And that quote shows up in 100 different other news websites. There's certainly circumstances and cases where you're going to have some small percentage of duplicate content. It's hard to give, Mike. There's not a hard number for it. I usually shoot for less than 10%. It also kind of depends on the context of what it is. So, like I said, if you have a quote from someone and that ends up being 13% of your article, I wouldn't stress over it. But, if you have something that's not a quote, or maybe you plagiarize something and that is 13% of it, then that's a little bit, more of a gray area where maybe I would look to rewrite that information. So it's kind of case by case, but generally speaking, if you're less than 10%, you're going to be okay. And if you really did write that content yourself and you don't have quotes or anything like that, you really should be closer to that 0% mark.
Yeah, I know a lot of business owners inadvertently, they'll copy and paste information from, maybe one of their other websites to their own website, or from someone else's website to their website. And that's a big no-no, right?
Yeah, any sort of, Google doesn't care who owns the website. So if you own, if you're Bill Gates and you own 5 million websites, and you can't just put the same content on all 5 million websites, right? So if you're a small business owner and you own two different locations and maybe you have two different websites for those two locations, you can't have the same content on both of those websites, even though you own both of them. Google is going to penalize you for that, and one of the sites isn't going to rank. It might not even get indexed at all. So it is important, even if it's your own website, to have unique content across those different web properties. The way you get around that is, a lot of times I see business owners make the mistake of, hey, we have a location here and there and we have two separate domains for it. Well, you probably don't need two domains. You could probably have one website and then just have, two location pages within that same website. That way you don't have to have that same redundant information on both domains.
Could this also be a problem if you have duplicate content within the same website?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we see that a lot, as almost every website these days is using a content management system or a CMS. A lot of times the CMS will create duplicate content problems for business owners. So the most common that we see is people that are using a theme or a website that maybe shows a large chunk of the blog post excerpt on their blog page before you actually click into that post. And, all of a sudden you have 5 or 6 paragraphs of text on your blog page that also lives in the blog post itself, that also lives on some auto-generated, category page or tag page. And then all of a sudden, but without even realizing it, you have 5 or 6 or 7 pages that are all duplicate content throughout your website. So it is important just to be mindful of, the things that your CMS may auto create and kind of the structure of your website, so that you realize if you're potentially creating duplicate content without even realizing it.
And I think you and I have seen this before, like from like dentists and chiropractors who sort of buy these pre-canned websites with made for you content. They have duplicate content issues and they don't even know it.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. There's a lot of lower quality SEO services out there that will have one of their writers write a piece of content, and then they'll take it amongst their 500 dental clients, and they'll maybe customize 1 or 2 words, or maybe not even that. They might just post the exact same thing, or they'll customize just very, very small pieces of it, and you end up with the same content as 500 other dental practices throughout the US. And the dentist thinks to himself, hey, these guys aren't in my city, I don't really care, they're not competing with me. But when it comes to your organic rankings and the quality of your website, ultimately that's going to hurt you. The other thing, Mike, that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to that is, if you're kind of a repeat offender of duplicate content. So if you have 1 or 2 pages on your website, you have a 50-page website, let's say, and you have 1 or 2 pages that are duplicate, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. It happens. Think of like terms of service, privacy policy, things like that. A lot of times those are duplicate across multiple websites. Not the end of the world. But if all of a sudden, your SEO company is posting the same blog post as they are for, 500 other clients, and they're doing it every week, next thing you know, most of your website's duplicate. That will not only hurt those blog pages, but it'll hurt your entire website. So you might say, hey, I don't care, it's just a blog post, but eventually that's going to also hurt your homepage and your service pages and your other pages, because Google's going to start to view your whole domain as being lower quality. So, even if you think it doesn't matter because it's just your blog posts, eventually that will catch up to you. It'll hurt your entire website.
And that's the real damage, I think, with duplicate content is, a client contacts you, like, why am I not ranking? And often this is a major reason why.
Very often, and I end up being the bad guy because I have to deliver that bad news of, hey, you've been paying X amount for 5 years and all this content's duplicate, we need to throw it out. And unfortunately, a lot of times they don't want to believe us because they're like, that just sounds like nonsense, but that's it's Google's rules. We're just kind of relaying what the rules are, right? And so it's very clear from Google that if you have too much duplicate content, your site is going to get either get penalized or not rank.
Great, thanks. Well, if you're watching this video, we offer quality website design and SEO services, and look forward to helping you. Thanks, Brennan.
Yep, thanks, Mike.